Hello, welcome to Read Read. Today I wanted to make a video talking about 10 books that I really loved and that were kind of, the equivalent of 5-star reads for me, but I never made YouTube videos for them for various reasons. So I'll talk about them specifically when I go through each book, but for the most part I would say that the reason I didn't make a video on them was either that it was too popular of a book, and I did want there to be some variety in the books that I actually select and talk about on this channel, or that I didn't necessarily, even though I really enjoyed reading them, I didn't feel like my experience was necessarily very unique or that I had anything kind of interesting to contribute. So yeah, I was happy to just let it be a book that I enjoyed and that made an impact on me, but I felt like there's plenty of other resources that you could go to find find a more in-depth analysis. But yeah, I still wanted to talk about them really quickly just to give you an idea of some of the other books that I've read that haven't had a chance to be highlighted on this channel, but I'll just, talk a couple of sentences on each of them. So one of the first ones is Blindside by Peter Watts. One of the reasons I haven't made a video on this is actually because I really want to reread it, but I also I bought the combination Firefall, and I really want to read Echopraxia as well. This is a hard sci-fi novel that has a wild bunch of characters. We've got our main character who is Siri Keaton, who is sort of like able to understand geniuses and experts, but is not one himself. He's sort of a living, walking Chinese room experiment. We've got the captain of the ship, Juka Sarasti, who is a vampire. We've got a linguist who has split personality disorder. We've got a doctor who is a robot, and it is an absolutely wild read. There are some mind-exploding concepts in this book that I really adored. And if you get a chance, I think Peter Watts actually put this book in the public domain, so you should be able to just find and download it. But yeah, of course, if you get a chance to support the author, please do pick up a copy of Blindside. Next up, Murakami, Norwegian Wood. This was another one of those books where I was like, yeah, I loved it, and I thought it was really great, but I didn't know what original ideas I could contribute when making a video. I do kind of still feel bad that my first video is talking about Kafka on the Shore and kind of bagging on it. Even though I kind of still feel a lot of the things, it was just a bit like, maybe I would have liked to have started my channel with a more wholesome with a more wholesome video. But yeah, Norwegian Wood, one of the things I really love about this is just how much death affects every single character, and there are some things, some Murakami-isms, like the obligatory hand job female character, which is always just sort of displeasurable to read. But all in all, I think it was really, I think that this was a really great read, and it was kind of funny. I remember when I was in Changi Airport, I was just sitting there, and exactly like the main character in the first chapter of this, I heard just an acoustic version of Norwegian Wood playing, and I just like got teary. It was a nice experience, but yeah. Oh, I should also mention as well, I do like all of these books. The order in which I'm telling you is not really a ranking, although I did save some of my favorite books till the very end. Next up is vintage Kafka's The Complete Short Stories. I talked really quickly about Kafka in my 2022 awards video, where I just talked about how one of the most unique stories that I read last year was The Burrow, which was in this collection. But of course, Kafka is really amazing, and I do recommend picking up this collection, because you've got The Metamorphosis, you've got The Country Doctor, you've got what's the one, In the Penal Colony, of course, all really classic Kafka stories, and I liked a lot of his parables as well. The Warden in the Tomb is another one that I really loved, that I feel like I haven't had a chance to highlight. Maybe I'll talk about Kafka at some point in the future, but would be due for a reread. So yeah. Another one, I don't actually have a copy of it on me right now because I've loaned it, but Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. I thought that was amazing, and Virginia Woolf's prose is obviously very excellent, and I loved how she approached stream of consciousness in comparison to how Joyce maybe did. Spoiler alert for another book coming up on this list. But yeah, because before To the Lighthouse, I'd only read A Room for One's Own, which I also really, really loved, and it was very good brain food, but I also just loved how Woolf structured an essay. So yeah, I was keen to go on and read another, like one of her prose works, and I thoroughly enjoyed To the Lighthouse. I also have Orlando sitting on the bookshelf, and I think I'll be picking up some more of her works pretty soon. So yeah. Okay, another sci-fi novel, Philip K. Dick's Eubic. I think I tried to make a video on this. I sat down and I brainstormed. I stopped after 3 minutes because I realized I really just needed to reread it. And as always, I like to make videos for books basically as soon as I've read them. Or I'll read them, maybe wait a day, take some notes and think about it. But yeah, I thought that this was incredible, and I actually thought I preferred this more than Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is a book that I hold higher than any of the Blade Runner movies. Yeah, Philip K. Dick's Eubic is just wild, and the only way I can sort of describe it is one of the concepts in fantasy and in sci-fi is sort of the information curve, and how gradually or seamlessly concepts are introduced. Sometimes for some books like Dune seems to have a pretty steep learning curve because of course readers need to know that Frank Herbert is doing all of the world building for several books, not just for one book. Eubic has a vertical learning curve. It is just bam, start, and then it only makes sense. You will spend the first 60 pages of this book not having any idea what is going on, and it is amazing how just as it slowly trickles down, you're like, oh, this makes so much sense now, and it's really an amazing work. Please, of all the Philip K. Dick, those are the only two I've read. But this is such an excellent sci-fi work, and I really couldn't recommend any others for people who are really into into literary works and are really into cool language as well. So yeah. Okay, the Poetry of Roka with this absolutely lovely cover. The reason I haven't talked about this is because I feel so woefully inadequate talking about poetry on this channel that I don't really think I'll ever make a video talking about poetry works, because what am I going to contribute other than just reading the poems and saying, oh yeah, I really like this. I'm not really that good at doing deep reading and whatnot, but so many, just to kind of point out, these are all of the highlights, the highlight poems, and I love Rilke so much. I do have a video talking about the Notebooks of Malta Lawrence Brigger, which I think is a book that I'm going to go on and kind of constantly reread. But the Poetry of Roka, of course he is actually a poet, and reminds me sort of like Sylvia Plath of, mostly a poet, but they write one excellent prose work. And so yeah, but of course they are mostly known as a poet. And so yeah, please, if you liked the Notebooks of Malta Lawrence Brigger, or really even if you liked the Letters to a Young Poet, which is a very popular thing, do go and read some of Rilke's poetry, and it's really great to see how he develops later on. Even some of his earlier poems are really excellent, but he definitely develops into a much more Rilkean style as you get into his sonnets to Orpheus and whatnot. So yeah, I kind of every now and then just pick this up and flick through and read a couple of the poems that I've selected, because Rilke is amazing. Down to the last three, the coup de grace, the ones that at this point I pretty much didn't make videos on them because I just feel like these books are too much for me, and I would need to, in order for me to make a video that I was actually proud of, I would need to go through and really do some hardcore research, make long, hour-plus videos on them. First up, the Brothers Karamatzov. So this is the second Dostoevsky I've read. The first one was of course, Crime and Punishment. I think that the Brothers K is just such a stunning work, and whereas with Crime and Punishment is probably the more popular one, and I do agree that Crime and Punishment has probably got more value as a psychological character study, and also it's probably got a more interesting plot. the Brothers Karamatzov, with regards to doing a sort of family study, a family dynamic analysis, is really second to none. And so, of course, you've got all of your, in Crime and Punishment, you've got your main character, Raskolnikov, and then all of the characters that surround him. In this one, of course, you've got all three of the brothers and every single character that surrounds them. So, of course, there's got Father Zosima, which I always read Father Zosima, and I just think Zezima from RuneScape. A little reference for anyone else who gets that. But yeah, we've got the Father Zosima, who's related, of course, to Alyosha. We've got Ivan's absolutely incredible Grand Inquisitor essay, I guess, and also his scene at the end, his dream sequence. But really, most of the active plot is Dmitry Karamazov and his relationship with the father. I think if I was to, oh man, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. I was going to say, yeah, read this before Crime and Punishment, but I don't know, because it is a longer work and it will take some commitment, but I think that this is really a kind of high point in literature for me, and I loved this so much. So yeah, Brothers K by Old Dusty. Okay, Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov. So I was kind of tossing up back and forth whether I wanted to select Lolita or this one, or Pale Fire, and the reason why is because Lolita has a sort of special place in my heart, because Lolita was the book that I read that made me realize how good literature can be. And that's not necessarily something that has to happen with Lolita. It could happen with any work. It could have happened with Pale Fire, and it can happen to you for any work. But reading Lolita, I remember just like being gobsmacked at just realizing, A, this could never be anything than a book. B, this is how good a book can be. And so from there, from that book, I just fell hardcore in love with Nabokov and decided that I was going to read, a whole bunch of his stuff. And so after reading Lolita, I picked up Pale Fire, and I remember just being blown away. I think that this is definitely my favorite Nabokov. I will make a video on this. It is due for a reread though, and another reason why I'm a bit hesitant to make a video is that there is a really in-depth video talking about some of the Easter eggs and the construction of Pale Fire that unfortunately I can't remember the name of, but I'll find it and I'll link it in the description. For anyone who doesn't know, the structure of this book is that it is an introduction or a foreword written by the main character. Then there is a 999 line poem, a canto in a couple of parts, and then a bunch of commentary on that poem by the main character. So the poem is written by the main character's neighbor, John Shade. Our main character, Charles Kimboat, allegedly, is doing commentary on it. But the hilarious thing, it's an incredibly postmodern work. The hilarious thing is that he is just completely misinterpreting what is happening and just projecting his own ideas onto the poem. And it's a very unique experience, and I love it. I love it so much. Pale Fire is my number one Nabokov, and probably up there in terms of all-time favorite book. Next and last up, the book that was so much, Ulysses by James Joyce. This book is great. This book is so good. I have really fond memories. I actually read this while I had COVID, sort of last year in November, so November 2022, and I just sat and binged this for something like 3 weeks. I didn't have COVID for 3 weeks. I was reading it, got sick, and so I had a full week off work, and then I just sort of binged the last of it in a week. And I really loved that. Because I was not going to work, I had some time, so the chapter that is set up entirely as a play, I pretty much read all of that non-stop. And then also, I guess pretty much from there, I was reading 8 hours a day just to finish off the book. And I really loved that I did that, because this book has got such a forward momentum. It is, I don't even know if I want to try and describe the book, because there is so much. There's a lot of great scholarly work on it. Of course, this was a book that was going to be too much for me, because it needs it deserves the most in-depth analysis. I love Joyce so much. I keep eyeing Finnegan's Wake, but that's another one that's going to be like, you know, I'm going to have to do the equivalent of just rearranging all of my internal organs just to try and understand this work. So yeah, but that's why I didn't make a video on Ulysses by James Joyce, but please do know that this is one of my favorite works of all time. And yeah, if you haven't had a chance, I would say that you don't even really need to read other Joyce, because all of his works are pretty unique. You can just jump straight into this if you're feeling the pull. And I think someone like Hardcore Literature, I think is his name, Benjamin, he talks about how, similar to Gravity's Rainbow, Ulysses is a book where it's not as difficult as you think, but that's because you can read it on a surface level and still really enjoy it. But all of the like connections, puns, jokes, literary allusions are there for you if you want to go back and do a deep read of it. So yeah, and like Joyce said, his goal was to keep universities busy for 300 years. So yeah, those are the 10 books that I really loved, but I haven't made a dedicated video for. Let me know what you thought of any of these books, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.